That's when I felt like I don't know. It was like when I felt at the top of in control of my life, you know?
That's when you felt in
when you were 14.
No, it was like, it's a different thing because I grew up with, you know, based on what I'm telling you, like my parents were very much like, I don't think they had a very good basis or idea of how to raise a child. They were like, we want great things from you. We're gonna push you somewhere, do that thing. So there was a lot of pressure growing up, and you know, I don't want to get too much into it, but it was like, it got to a point where I used to be very much nonverbal and like non-communicative, and at some point when you just push the envelope on somebody too much, they kind of have like a breaking point.
Sure.
And when they break, they have like an awakening. So I feel like my very first one was when I was kind of like 12 years old. That's when I remember for the first time having thoughts of my own where I can be like, I want to do this. Here's what I want to do.
Damn, on top of puberty, your brain wasn't over.
I know. Well, because before that, it was just like, oh, mom wants me to do this. Mom wants me to do that. You know, expectations for Asian families are just that you need to succeed. You need to be good at school. You need to be good at sports. And, you know, as a child, and I didn't talk until I was like 8 years old or something like that. I was just like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And then eventually they keep wanting more and more and more until you kind of snap in your head. Then you're like, what the hell am I doing? So 12 was when I started having my first thoughts.
That's crazy young.
This is what people like sometimes realize when they're like in their mid-20s.
Wait, you guys weren't thinking when you were 12?
Not so much. I was still shitting my pants.
Not so much shitting my pants. That's a Joey thing. That's a good thing. But like in terms of you know, especially in like Southeast Asian culture, where you know sometimes a lot of people from Southeast Asia, their parents, they have one priority, and that's like surviving for a lot of the times. And you know, they want their kid to do this and they want their kid to do that, and there's a vague push, but there's not so much
there's no real directive behind it. You get an opportunity like America, which is, you know, a land filled with opportunities, and you go there and you say, all right, go fucking succeed, kid. How? You know,
be a doctor, be an engineer.
And when I had my awakening, I started thinking for myself, and over time I started to notice the patterns more. And then finally, when I lived in Canada, that was like the first time I ever felt like I'm on my own, I'm doing my own thing, and this feels good. This is what it feels like to be alive.
So
you know?
What is it that you kind of like realized? What was it that you wanted to do at that time of like 12, 14?
Well, I mean, when I was in Canada, I lived there for a couple of years, and I was doing really well academically, and you know, I was still super awkward, but I think there's kind of like a weird charm to somebody who's really awkward. You know, like the transfer student who doesn't say anything or do anything ever.
It's more like
usually sits at the back of the class.
You're like curious. You're like, what's that dude's deal?
And
it's mysterious.
Especially when in school, you know, you're around the same people all the time. You know, when someone new gets introduced, you're like, interesting.
I was just like, the reality was that I was just really awkward, and I didn't know how to make any friends. So I was always, people would approach me and I would just be like, and that's it. And I think that made people want to approach me even more somehow. But I felt good because it was like, for the first time in my life, people are paying attention to me and asking me to hang out. And because before that, I never had that. I was like, you know, always the awkward immigrant, you know, because it's different when you're surrounded by people who, because I lived in Florida. And the Floridians did not give a fuck about some Asian guy. They saw an Asian kid and they were like, throw his bike against the wall, you know? So for the longest time, I was like, if I can be invisible, they won't pick on me. And then when I came to Canada,
like some light Yagami-esque.
when I came to Canada, I was like, I'm invisible, but why are people trying to pay attention to me even more?
You know, I'm jealous because like I do that shit and I'm like, I'm just actually invisible. I remember my high school years. I was like, well, I don't speak to anyone. No one speaks to me. I mean, I was fine with that.
Well, that happened to me when I came back to America because my student visa ran out. So I was like, I was kicked out of Canada, and I was so upset about it because my life was so good there. I was finally starting to work out. I got into like powerlifting and then I started competing. Yeah, I was like 200 pounds. I was huge. I was making food, going to the gym every morning. Yeah. I showed you the picture.
Yeah, you showed me the picture.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, when he was like, yeah, I powerlifted. I did competitive powerlifting. I was like, what kind of life have you had, man?
Well, it's like when you're a kid and you live alone, you don't have anything else to do. You're like, what can I get into, you know?
Oh, wait.
You're like literally feeling, you're feeling every branch of the skill tree
Most
right
kids
now.
I know, they play video games and...
What age did you start doing this?
Powerlifting and stuff like that? When I was in Canada was the first year that I started lifting.
So
how
14.
Let me see.
14?
14?
Something like that. I got into
Bullshit. No, you did not powerlift at 14.
I got into really, really good shape when I was like turning like 16, 17, stuff like that.
That makes more sense because you get more into sports.
Well, that's when I started, so when I was really young. You
I mean,
know,
I
was-
say bullshit because I'm jealous. I wish I had done that.
Yeah, right.
I started learning
like,
that.
how the fuck
I used
do
to
you
just fuck around on quad bikes all weekend.
Hey, you know what?
I
Cardio.
didn't even go outside, bro.
Yeah, bro, you
Cardio
guys
is-
went
Well,
outside?
that's what, like when you say like I started thinking for myself, like what the fuck do you mean? Like what are
Well,
we
it's-
not doing?
For me, it's I've always been very.
no, for these guys. I'm
I
like, why haven't
see.
they thought?
I've always been very
We
absent.
just go and like fuck around on the
Okay.
farm and do
So
our own
this
thing
is,
for like 2 days.
Yeah,
This
my
is-
thing was, I just play video games.
I like I did that too. I mean, I like fucking shit up.
This is when I
Yeah.
started. Here, I'll send you guys pictures. You can put on. This is when I started trying to figure it out.
Damn,
So
big boy.
I was like, oh, I want to get big like those fucking
you are- yeah,
superhero
that's big.
guys.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm gonna learn how to like lift weights and do this and that, and it was fun. It gave me new perspective on life,
Yeah.
basically.
Hell yeah.
Why did you stop powerlifting? Or was it just because you moved back to America?
I think everything I do, I get hyper obsessed with it.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So I got so obsessive to the point where I blew out my elbow and then also my shoulder. So I had to stop.
Good time to
Yeah,
stop.
good time
So
to stop.
the doctors were like, "You shouldn't do this anymore," and I'm like, "But I'm so jacked, dude. I'm so fucking strong. I can't stop." And then I didn't stop, and then
Yeah.
it was just gone.
Destroyed.
So. And then I got a job. You know,
Yeah, that
when
normally
you-
does it. That normally
Yeah,
for most
yeah,
people,
yeah.
that's what
when
does
you get
it.
a job, you just don't really have
What
much.
was
you
your
can
was your
do
first
anymore.
job then?
My first job ever was when I was younger, when I was
Yeah.
around 14. I was delivering mail.
Oh, nice,
So I was
nice.
working
Okay.
for like the post office. I opted to do the later shifts when they're just loading the boxes.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's cool.
Okay.
Because I didn't like, talking to people. I didn't know how to drive.
Sure.
So I was like, I'm just going to put these
I'll move
boxes on
things.
top of each other. And
So the
then-
bodybuilding arc
Yeah,
started.
yeah.
You're like, damn, I'm gonna lift it.
Yeah,
Shit,
yeah.
This is great.
And so after I was back in America, I was like, my future is ruined. Everything is ruined. I had such a good life in Canada. I was strong. I was, people liked to talk to me.
Yeah.
I had a great future. I was like, I'm going to go to university with all my friends. I'm going to go to the nice university and live that college life. And then once I was basically deported, I was like, well,
Oh no.
I'm back
GGs.
in. I was back in Florida. I was so low. I had to go back to Floridian school and see, like, the first thing I saw when I walked in was like some girl on a leash next to some guy, and I'm like, all right,
The least weird thing in Florida.
we're back in America. And I was like, this is very depressing for me.
Damn.
How old were you when you moved back to Florida?
I think I was around like 17 or 18.
Okay, so
Okay.
so then
Yeah.
how did the powerlifting thing? How did it go from powerlifting to voice acting? Because it seems pretty much the other side of the spectrum.
That was the thing, was that when I was in Canada, I wanted to be a physical trainer.
Okay.
I wanted to be a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I really love this like lifting thing. I feel like it sets me apart from everybody else, or at least everybody else that I knew.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not really into academics or being a lawyer or a doctor.
Yeah.
Maybe if I do lifting, I could, I could look good, I could feel great, I could help other people. That's the goal. And then once I went back to America, I was so depressed that I just kind of just vegetated and rotted away in bed for a long time. And I was like, well, what now? And I started watching anime again.
Damn.
That was
Checks
That's
out.
what one does
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they're in a
yeah.
vegetative state.
Yeah.
I was
Checks
like,
out.
I'm gonna watch anime again. And before all of that, my very first love, passion for anything was art.
Right.
When I was really, really young, like I said, I didn't talk until I was like 8-ish.
Right.
How I used to communicate. Well, I didn't communicate. What I used to do was I just drew. I like drawing. My first ever drawing that I can remember was that I drew Kakashi from Naruto. Yeah.
Oh,
And that was the first doodle I ever did.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I started drawing, the fucking Dragon Ball characters.
Yeah.
The Super Saiyan 6 Dragon Ball characters. I was doodling those, and then I
yeah?
drew Pokemon. I'm like, I love drawing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a mangaka.
Right.
So that my first awakening was 12 years old, and I was like, that's my future path. I love anime, I love manga, I love drawing.
Yeah.
This is what I'm gonna do.
Oh, yeah?
And then I started imagining a future for myself. I'm like, I'm gonna be 43. It's gonna be Christmas Eve. My assistant's gonna come in and be like, hey, you sure you don't want to celebrate Christmas with us? And I'm gonna be like, no, I'm good. And then she's gonna leave, and then I'm gonna pass out and die alone on Christmas. And that's gonna be my life.
Why
As a
isn't
mangaka.
that your vision for the future is like the bad end of a story?
yeah.
Like,
No, it's the most realistic version for me. When I saw that, I was like, I will pursue my passion with
you're
all
like,
my
that
heart,
sounds sick.
Yeah.
sick, and then I will die with honor as a great manga artist.
Holy shit.
But then when I grew older and I started lifting, I was like, man, drawing's fucking hard. I can't do this
man.
anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. And then when I started watching anime again, I was like, I still love anime and I still love manga and I still love this way of storytelling in this world. What else can I do?
Yeah, you don't want to draw.
Yeah, I don't want to draw.
Yeah.
And then I, turned on Toonami, and then I heard, English dubs, and I was like, well, I don't speak Japanese. I can probably do this.
Pretty alright at
Yeah, I'm pretty good at English for now. So maybe I do this. But how it happened was that it was like a hot summer day. And I was sitting there in my fucking tank top eating udon. And all of a sudden, I just thought, what if I became an anime voice actor? I think I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to that.
Holy shit.
And then that's how it all started for me. Yeah.
If there's one thing I already know at this point of hearing your story is that once Alex is dedicated to something, he fucking goes for it, bro. Like, there is no stopping this man.
It's a hyper obsessive component.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like it's like someone reaching enlightenment in like the Floridian sun in a tank top.
Yeah,
It's just like, I think I'm going to voice act now.
Yeah. I see it now. The Florida heat gets to you.
Your third eye just opens, like, I will be a voice actor.